I was laughing because yesterday I didn't have a Beyonce song on the walkout, and I told them I was suing them. So they just saved themselves and Politico a lot of money. Um, Senator Laphonza Butler, thank you so much for doing this. You don't need introduction,
Nope.
But
Nope.
she's one of those that hates an introduction.
Let's skip all of that.
California Senator, and I would say close ally and former aide to Vice President Harris. So thank you so much for coming on her big day, her big week. One thing I want to get from you really quickly before we hop into Vice President Harris and your career, we are hearing from a lot of folks that they want to see a Palestinian American, someone from the uncommitted, to get on stage tonight. Some of your colleagues in the House have said that. The UAW, who endorsed Vice President Harris, and Governor Walz said the same thing. I'm curious if you think the convention should, on its last night, put a Palestinian American, someone from the uncommitted delegate movement, on stage.
Look, I think it's incredibly important to continue to clearly communicate the values of the Vice President in this moment. Right? She has been very clear about how she feels about ending the violence on innocent Palestinians, protecting the rights of Israel to exist and defend itself, and to get those hostages home. And if those are the 3-point plans to her, 3 sort of pillars to her plan, I think it's important that we try to find a space to be able to communicate that. And I hope and I think that the team is really working hard to do that.
Yeah, there were some folks right outside of the Politico Grill last night, CNN Politico Grill, excuse me, last night. who were, talking to Representative AOC and some others, kind of saying they're waiting on that call. So we'll keep folks updated as that's going on. Did you agree, and were you surprised, I guess, with the overwhelming sentiment in the party that current President Biden, former nominee, should drop his bid?
Look, where my thought lie in all of this is that we've got to recognize what happened on that debate stage, and incredibly disappointing performance that actually was. And then, but I believe that President Biden had earned the grace to be able to make a decision, an informed decision about what he should do with his career. I believed that there needed to be a turn in our party, in our party leadership. But when you've been a public servant for 52 years, when you have done and you tried to fulfill every commitment that you have made, to me, you have earned the ability to have private conversations, to people, to be open to feedback from people, to give you honest insight into what things are. But I just wasn't raised to put my business out on Front Street. I just wasn't raised that way. And so I disagree with the tactic, but I'm perfectly fine with people expressing their opinion.
That turn happens to be your former boss and friend, now having the nomination. You were on her 2020 campaign. You've known her for decade plus at this point.
Don't age me, Eugene. I still get to be the youngest senator, one of the youngest senators.
Well, yeah, that says a lot about the Senate also. What do you think about kind of this rush of excitement and energy in the party? It was like a switch flipped that night when, as she was making those 100+ calls from the VPR, I was talking to every Democrat who would pick up their phone, and they were all getting excited that we saw how much money they've raised since that day. What do you think? How are you thinking about this as someone who still talks to her?
Yeah. Look, I think this is one of the most exciting times in my political lifetime, and I was, a part of the 2008 election of President Obama. I was at that convention in Denver, Colorado, and this feels different. And so for me, the way that it really is sort of manifesting is that everyone in this country can see a bit of themselves represented in Vice President Harris and in Governor Walz. And to me, that is a lot of the fuel of the excitement. Whether you are biracial, or you're a lawyer, or you're Indian American, or your parents are immigrants, or you were born on a farm, you can find a way to see yourself in this ticket, and that is an exciting invitation to be a part of democracy in a way that we haven't had in a long time.
Yeah, this is something you were trying to get her, this exact party on Thursday night at a convention in 2020. How are you and the folks who who, some of them are back,
Yeah.
but the folks that were trying to do that, how are you guys processing all of this? I'm sure you've talked to her since.
Yeah.
How is she processing it?
I am trying to process it in real time.
Yeah.
At the same time,
Let's do it together for the
Right,
next
and
12
at
minutes.
the same time, I am trying to like do everything that I can to make it so. Right, like we worked so hard in 2019 and 2020. Was able to help her lift her star to be recognized by President Biden to become the vice president. And right now it is truly about seeing it through. So I want to be present for that. And it is a historical moment. I think I was born and raised in Mississippi. And so I think about what Fannie Lou Hamer's contribution to this moment has been. I think about what Shirley Chisholm's contribution to this moment is. And I think about, frankly, what this moment means for my daughter. And so the way that I'm trying to process it in real time is that I actually sit down and write her a letter every morning.
Your daughter?
My daughter. And I made a point to write it on Senate letterhead. So that I'm actually able to capture for her that her mother is the only black woman serving in the United States Senate today, who is doing everything that I can to ensure that she can dream to be president if she chose to. And like there's probably all kinds of little things, cats and dogs, that I could think about, but none of it is more important than what we are making possible for our daughters to imagine.
One thing that's really interesting is, because your party, you guys get excited, but then you're always scared. You're like always terrified that another shoe is gonna drop. So we've been talking to some Democrats that are here who are excited, but they think about that first year, and you and I talked quite a bit during that time. That first year of the vice presidency, where they weren't sure. She struggled a little bit to find her footing. I think even she would say, maybe she wouldn't say, maybe some staff would say, that 2019 campaign and dropping out in December, which probably led to her being vice president. So I guess, why should people not be worried that that's going to happen? Or do you see some pitfalls that could come? We only have 75-ish days left.
Look, I'm not concerned. I am practical. I understand that the vice president and Governor Walz are human beings that are going to make mistakes, whose careers and policies deserve to be interrogated. The American people should know exactly who it is that they are casting their ballot for. But I'm not worried because I know that the vice president is clear about who she is. She is a public servant who has dedicated her life to public service. She is a prosecutor who has prosecuted time and time again people who have dared to do wrong in our society and in our country. She is prepared to meet this moment because California has taught her in all of its diversity that the most important part of winning elections is building the coalition. California is not just Los Angeles and San Francisco. It's not just Hollywood and the Golden Gate Bridge. It is 58 counties.
And some rough and tumble politicians.
And some rough and tumble politics.
Nancy Pelosi here giving it to J.
Sharp elbows and pointy stilettos.
The Vice President Harris that folks get to see is quite serious. She's lawyerly. Every once in a while, people get the laugh and the coconut and all of that. But okay, coconut.
All right, coconut.
Okay.
All right.
He probably knows the dance and everything.
And the brat too.
But what can you tell these folks about who she is behind closed doors, right? The person that you know and have known for a long time. And I know you're going to say someone who's been fighting for the kids and doing, like, something that folks don't actually know and haven't heard from anybody around in a long time.
That's interesting. Look, I think it's not earth-shattering, but family is everything to her. For a lot of her life, it was her mom and her sister. Her extended family that was in India, but then their sort of chosen family around them in Oakland. And it is everything to her. And she thinks about her work and her responsibility from that context of how do we protect the family. And when the most tender moments, and I think the most the moments that that give you the greatest insight into who she is as a person is when she sees a young person. You've seen her do this, Eugene. She will grab any young person by both sides of their face and talk to them as if they are the only person in the room, and communicate to them how much the world needs them and how much they should act as leaders without asking for permission. And I think that communicates a lot, both the urgency of what is in front of us as a country in terms of developing the next generation, but I think it also communicates a care, not just for her children, but for America's children. And I think that is who she is when she's not on stage. When she has my daughter and her friends come over to VPR to play in the pool, that is who she is. And she grabs them all by the face and she says the exact same thing.
When you think about the kinds of policies that Vice President Harris should be talking about. We've seen she had the economic speech in North Carolina. She's talked about immigration. When I was with her in Arizona, I think, it's hard to remember.
Who knows?
But there's not like a suite of policies that we've seen. And I've talked to some Democrats and they're saying, you know what, we focus too much on the white papers. And maybe we don't need that. And maybe this is a vibes election and not a policy election. What policies should she be putting forward to make sure that the votes come?
Look, I think she's doing it, right? What the American people are telling us that are most important to them and the candidates that they are going to be choosing is their plans on the economy. How are they going to help bring prices down and change the conversation that working families are having at kitchen tables all across this country? They want to know what that candidate's position is in terms of abortion and the woman's right to make decisions about their own body, and what is that candidate going to do to keep our country and our communities safe? And I think the vice president has articulated those things. There are always going to be questions about education policy or foreign policy, and all of that is important. And we have 75 days to fight for the future of this country. And so we can have, if we want to have a policy debate, let's interrogate the policy of both sides.
I thought you might say that. What should, as they get out on the road and they're explaining their policies or they're talking about the vibes, the underlying thing, and we're hearing this a little bit this week, is about who she is and what a woman president, a black woman, a brown woman president would mean for a lot of people in this country. And I'm curious, her campaign isn't talking about it that much, right? A lot of people are talking about it. She's not. What do you think is behind that? How do you think she is thinking about saying, I'm the first, I'm going to break that glass ceiling? It's a little bit different than Secretary Clinton went at it.
Yeah. Look, I'm going to say something that I know is going to sound a little off color, but this is, as a black woman, you wake up every day knowing you're a black woman. And the world don't ever let you forget that you are a black woman. So she doesn't need to profess or wear a sticker on her shirt that she is a black woman. And so at the same time, with that being true, this is an election that I believe, and that I think the way that she thinks about what she is doing in this moment, it is bigger than just her gender or her race. I fundamentally believe and know in her heart that she is doing this because she knows that there is a future to be fought for. And it would not matter if she were white, if she were brown, if she were purple, she would still be the woman to fight for that future in this moment. And so I think she is choosing to have a conversation with all of America, not about her race or her gender, not because she's not a black woman. They know that. They see that. But because this is an opportunity for all of us to choose to do something that is bigger than any one of us.
You began your career as a union organizer. The vice president has the UAW behind her. I was with her when we were there in Detroit when she was talking to them. Blue collar union workers are not always, don't always feel like they're a key constituency for Democrats. the vote in the rural areas of the country and kind of like the middle of the country, as for the flyover countries, people like to say, pejoratively, is going to be important for Vice President Harris. How does she court those votes here? Because, you know, the Republicans are calling her this like lefty liberal from California who wants to do all these things that she said in 2019. She said, you know, we would call it backtrack, you might say clarify, some policies from that time period. So how should she court these rural voters, these kind of union workers, blue-collar folks?
I don't think it's about courtship at all. I fundamentally think it's about trust. If you are able to do what it is required to earn a person's trust, then you have a pathway to earning their vote. And I think what Vice President Harris and Governor Walz are going to be doing is not flying over, but standing in, communicating with those communities. And so many of us are going to be charged with going and trying to help do that. It is great that the Vice President and this ticket has been endorsed by the UAW. And the UAW's members vote in ways that may not necessarily align with what the union's endorsement is. And endorsements matter and they're important, but trust matters more. And I think the most important thing that the Vice President can do tonight is tell the American people, including those blue-collar workers, who she is, what they have in common, and what she intends to do to help to make life better for themselves and their communities.
I have an inkling that you've spoken with her about her speech tonight, what's in it. It's just us, you know, so if you'd like to give a preview, some excerpts that the campaign hasn't sent just yet. What are you expecting from her in this speech tonight? What should we expect? What have you talked to her about?
Look, you have covered the Vice President for some time. You and I have talked about sometimes she can be hesitant to talk about her lived experience. And I would expect that tonight, even you and I are going to learn some things about the Vice President that we may not have known. I think there is a vulnerability in introducing herself to the country.
She feels a vulnerability.
No, I think she's going to demonstrate a vulnerability in telling the American people who she is and where she came from, what she's about, what motivates her, what inspires her. But I think mostly what we should expect is an invitation to those voters who haven't yet found their political home, who haven't yet made up their mind that this is a ticket or a party in which they can have their voices heard. And it's going to be an important opportunity to extend that invitation to folks who may have voted for President Trump in the past, but who frankly are just bored with the same old show. And are looking for somebody to take the country forward and unify us together. And so I think there's going to be an introduction, a continued introduction of her to the American people, an invitation extended, and hopefully a vision for what we can accomplish when we choose to do it together.
We only have a few minutes left. I want to talk about you, which you're going to hate, I know. You have a few more months as senator.
I'm not counting down.
You're not. No, you're not. You don't have a lot of tickets. You didn't run for election, and also the question was, were you going to actually do that? There was already a hot primary happening. You gave up power before, it was cool. So did you feel pressure to not run because the primary was already happening? Talk to us about that choice of doing that. It doesn't happen around D.C. that much.
It does not happen around D.C. that much, and it is not my first time doing it. I left the labor movement some would say, at the height of my power. I was the president of the largest union in the state of California. I had not only helped to elect Governor Newsom, but also Governor Brown, not just Senator Kamala Harris, but also Senator Alex Padilla. It was not much or not many rooms in which I didn't have access on behalf of the members that I represented. And at 39 years old, I stepped away. Not for any other reason than I knew it was time for somebody else to have an opportunity. And so I have a little bit of experience in walking away from what others perceive as power. The most important thing for me in this experience of being appointed to this Senate seat is that it actually helped to reaffirm that I know exactly who I am. And what I when I am in a seat, what it is, what I have learned is so important to me is that it is a seat that is not mine. But it is power that must be shared and used on behalf of everyone. I didn't plan to be a United States Senator. I literally became a United States Senator in 24 hours. 24 hours. I had...
Well, your former boss got the nomination in 24 hours, so I'm sending a thing here.
So we have another thing that we have in common.
The two of you, yeah.
And Californians deserve to have someone representing them who was prepared to commit their life to it. And I just wasn't prepared to make that sacrifice at this point. I have a 9-year-old daughter. The commitment that I made to her and to my family was that I was going to be fully committed to doing that. It is an honor to serve. It really is an opportunity of a lifetime. It's not to say that I won't ever run for office again, but I know that in this moment, California needs someone else in this seat. And I know that my light will shine when it's time.
Yeah, and that feels like something's coming soon. Really quickly, you are going to be out of a job. If Vice President Harris wins, if she asks you, would you join the cabinet?
Are you trying to put me in unemployment?
I'm just you will be soon. You will be soon. You will be soon.
If the President of the United States asked any of us to do something, we would all consider it.
Yeah. Thank you, Senator Butler, for your time.
Eugene.
Thank you all so much.